The scorching Texas sun crawled over the horizon, painting the sky a sickly red as the Mystery Machine, with its characteristic rumble, cut through the oppressive silence of the deserted road. Inside, the air was heavy with the sweet, cloying aroma of grape bubblegum, courtesy of a newly discovered box by Scooby and Shaggy, who, with wide eyes, exchanged knowing glances with each chew. Man, this silence is so silent, Shaggy muttered, his voice a little muffled by the gum. Scooby nodded with an apprehensive "Roro," sniffing the air. A strange smell, metallic and sweet, mixed with the gum, sending a shiver down the dog's and his faithful companion's spines. Fred, at the wheel, watched the fuel gauge plummet dangerously. Looks like we'll have to stop for gas. Haven't seen a station for miles. Daphne, who was touching up her lipstick with a surgeon's concentration, sighed. I just wanted a place with Wi-Fi. My last Fabogram post isn't blowing up like it should. Velma, meanwhile, was engrossed in an old book about local folklore, her glasses sliding down her nose. According to this guide, we're approaching an area with some pretty disturbing urban legends. It talks about an old family that mysteriously disappeared around here, and their house. Well, it was never seen again. Suddenly, a metallic clang from under the hood made the Mystery Machine cough and sputter, coming to an abrupt halt. The silence that followed was even thicker, broken only by the sighs of relief and frustration from the five friends. Shaggy and Scooby immediately began to tremble. Oh my God, Velma. You cursed the van with your scary stories, Shaggy exclaimed, hugging Scooby tightly. Fred tried to start it again, but the engine just weakly choked. Looks like we're stuck. And, coincidentally, right in front of the only visible building on this abandoned road. The twilight revealed a crumbling mansion with dark windows that looked like empty eyes, an aura of pure abandonment. A rusty, barely legible sign swayed precariously over the wrought iron gate. House of 1,000 Corpses. A shiver ran through everyone present. The air grew heavy, laden with a sense of ill omen, and the strange smell, now stronger, seemed to come directly from that house. With no fuel, no cell signal, and night falling, the only option seemed to be to knock on the door of that sinister place. The mystery had, without a doubt, found Mystery Inc. Captain Spaulding led the group down a dimly lit hallway where dust and silence were broken only by the creak of the wooden floorboards under their feet. As I was saying, my young friends, this place is a monument to art. To the art of preservation, he explained, gesturing to a dusty glass cabinet where a collection of bizarre, desiccated insects was displayed. Daphne, nose wrinkled, observed. Preservation of what, exactly? This looks more like a pet cemetery. Velma, always observant, noticed something that intrigued her. Captain Spaulding, I've noticed several names and dates carved into the walls of this hallway. It looks like a visitor list? Spaulding chuckled, a sound that made Scooby and Shaggy shiver. Ah, yes, my guest of honor. Many come, some stay. But everyone leaves their mark, one way or another. Fred, already suspicious, asked, and what happens to those who stay? Do they become part of the collection? Captain Spaulding just gave an enigmatic smile, revealing yellow teeth. You'll see. Life here is full of surprises. As they walked, Daphne, with her keen eye, began to observe the details. Wait a minute. That list of names ... It looks like there are more disappeared than visitors, and the dates are quite recent. Captain Spaulding, did some of these people disappear right after visiting this house? Spaulding's smile widened. They're just ... lost souls, my dear. The road is treacherous around here. Velma, overhearing the conversation, stopped abruptly. Daphne has a point. If we cross-reference the data with missing persons reports in the region, we might have a connection. I have an app on my tablet that monitors that. Scooby and Shaggy, meanwhile, had wandered off a bit, drawn by the smell of something that seemed to be ... cheese crackers. They followed the scent to a slightly ajar door, which revealed a disorganized kitchen. "Shaggy, do you think there are real crackers in here?" Scooby whispered, sniffing the air. "Only one way to find out, Scooby," Shaggy replied, his eyes hungry. They slipped into the kitchen without the others noticing. While Velma quickly typed on her tablet, Fred began to think of a plan. "We need more information about Captain Spaulding's collection. What if these people didn't disappear by chance?" He looked around, searching for cameras or other forms of surveillance. "Daphne, could you try to distract Captain Spaulding while Velma and I investigate the list of names?" Suddenly, a muffled scream echoed from the kitchen, followed by the sound of pots and pans falling. "Scooby! Shaggy!" Fred exclaimed, running towards the sound. When they reached the kitchen, they found their two friends caught in a makeshift fishing net, hanging upside down over a bubbling cauldron. Captain Spaulding stood in the doorway, a mocking grin on his face. Well, looks like we have two more acquisitions for my collection. Welcome to my culinary laboratory." He gestured to two shadowy figures, who turned out to be members of the Firefly family, emerging from the shadows. The situation had just become much more dangerous. The house of 1,000 corpses was a labyrinth of dusty corridors and forgotten rooms, the perfect setting for a frantic chase. Fred, Velma, and Daphne ran, hearing the heavy footsteps of the Fireflies approaching. Scooby and Shaggy, still recovering from their fall, will use these dummies as bait. How about we use some of these dummies to create an extra distraction near the window? That way, they might think we're trying to escape that way, but in reality, we'll be waiting in the trap. Shaggy was tying empty cans and pans to the branches. Captain Spaulding vociferated, promising revenge. At the same instant, a cacophony of noises erupted from outside, clanging cans, falling pans, and the hysterical barks and yells of Scooby and Shaggy. "They're escaping. Through the window. Did you think it would be that easy, kid?" The trap had failed. The group was now exposed, and the Fireflies, even more furious, advanced. Doubt hung in the air. Had the plan gone completely wrong? Shouted one of the Fireflies. Captain Spaulding and the rest of the family burst into the room, their eyes fixed on the window where the wax figures, now illuminated by the projector's light, seemed to move. "They won't escape. These meddling kids will pay for interfering with our business." The group in the living room hid behind the wax figures, their hearts pounding. "Ready, Scooby? On my signal, we'll play the Symphony of Terror," exclaimed Captain Spaulding, advancing. Fred pulled the trigger. The armors crashed down, but to the group's horror, one of the Fireflies, a nimble and thin man, managed to dodge at the last second, pulling Captain Spaulding out of the impact area. The armors fell with a crash, hitting only a wax figure, which shattered into 1,000 pieces. Scooby nodded, with a look of fear and excitement. Fred nodded, impressed. "Great idea, Daphne. Come on, everyone. We don't have much time. Velma, we need you to prepare a recording with the evidence from the tablet. And Daphne, you can use those tablecloths to create a kind of curtain here," he explained, pointing to a strategic corner of the room. "Scooby and Shaggy, your part is vital. When I give the signal, you need to make as much noise as possible to attract all the Fireflies here. Use their speed to outrun their pursuers in the kitchen. Let's meet in the living room, the biggest one." Fred shouted to the girls as he veered into a corridor on the right. "There, we can set the trap." Upon reaching the living room, the group found themselves in an even more bizarre environment. Life-sized wax figures, some disfigured and with expressions of horror, filled the space, resembling a macabre audience. Velma, breathless, pointed to a bookshelf full of old cameras and videotapes. "Fred, look," she muttered. "If they're filming everything, they need a control center. And this place has all the characteristics of an amateur, but macabre, film studio." Fred, meanwhile, was assembling a complex contraption with ropes, pulleys, and a collection of old armors he found in the corner of the room. The trap will be simple, but effective. When they enter, a trigger will release these armors, which will fall on them, immobilizing them. This could be the proof we need. Fred, with his engineer's mind at work, began to visualize the plan. Okay, here's the idea. Daphne, with an appraising look, suggested, while Velma fiddled with her tablet, connecting it to a miraculously working projector they found. Outside, Scooby and Shaggy, hidden in a bush near the living room window, prepared for their part of the plan. Inside the house, the Firefly's footsteps approached. Fred signaled to Shaggy and Scooby. "We got you, you miserable wretches." Captain Spaulding and the Firefly who saved him laughed malevolently. The trap's failure reverberated through the room, leaving the Mystery Inc. group exposed and vulnerable. Captain Spaulding and the Firefly who dodged the trap advanced, their gazes filled with murderous intent. "Now you'll see what happens to those who meddle in the Firefly family's business," snarled Captain Spaulding, pulling out a rusty knife. The chase turned into a cat-and-mouse game through the house of 1,000 corpses. Fred, with his agility, dodged a blow from Captain Spaulding, pushing him aside, which caused the villain to bump into a pile of old video boxes. The boxes fell, scattering tapes all over the floor. "Velma, the tapes!" Fred shouted as he tried to keep Captain Spaulding at bay. Daphne, realizing the imminent danger, ran towards Velma. The nimble Firefly tried to intercept her, but Daphne, with a quick and unexpected move, used her karate skills to defend herself, disarming the villain with a kick to the arm and throwing his knife away. "Nobody messes with my friends," she exclaimed, showing she was more than just a pretty face. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy, who had entered the room during the confusion, found themselves faced with the scene. Captain Spaulding was trying to get up, and the other Firefly was stunned. "Rah-roh! This doesn't look like fun, Shaggy," Scooby barked. "It's time to be heroes, Scooby," Shaggy replied, despite his body trembling. With a sudden idea, Shaggy saw a large oriental rug on the floor. "Let's roll him up, Scooby." They coordinated, each grabbing an end of the rug. Captain Spaulding, still recovering from the fall, tripped over the videotapes, and just as he was trying to regain his balance, Scooby and Shaggy pulled the rug with force. Captain Spaulding slipped and was rolled up in the rug like a giant burrito, falling with a thud. The other Firefly, seeing his boss immobilized, tried to attack Scooby and Shaggy, but Fred, who had freed himself from the rolled-up Captain Spaulding, intercepted the Firefly, using one of the fallen armors from the trap to block him and push him against the wall, where he hit his head and passed out. "We did it!" Daphne exclaimed, relieved. Velma, with the tablet in hand, was already connecting it to a large tube monitor she had found in the room. The videotapes scattered on the floor were the key. She inserted one of the tapes into the VCR connected to the monitor. The screen staticed for a moment, and then grotesque and disturbing images appeared. Real people in terror-filled situations being filmed. "Bingo!" Velma exclaimed, her eyes gleaming behind her glasses. "Here's the definitive proof. This is the real horror movie Captain Spaulding mentioned. And these people on the tapes are the missing people. They weren't actors. They were victims." She pointed to the screen where one of the people on the tapes was clearly identifiable as someone from the list Daphne had noticed. Captain Spaulding, still rolled up in the rug, tried to squirm, his face red with rage. "No, you can't prove anything. It's all just ... performance art." But the image on the screen and Velma's tablet evidence spoke for themselves. The Firefly family's macabre scheme had been exposed. With Captain Spaulding and the Firefly immobilized, the tension finally dissipated in the house of 1,000 corpses, giving way to a sense of relief and disbelief. Velma approached Captain Spaulding, still rolled up in the rug, and removed his sunglasses, revealing a pair of small, irritated eyes. Captain Spaulding Or should I say Otis Driftwood? The evidence is irrefutable. These tapes are snuff movies, and this house was just a front for your macabre business. Why do all this? Otis, with a grunt, spat on the floor. Why? Money, of course, and for art. People are tired of these fake horror movies. They want to see the real thing, true fear, genuine agony. The Firefly family and I were just giving the public what they really wanted. And we weren't the only ones, believe me. He tried to squirm again, but the rug held him fast. Daphne, with a sigh of relief, commented, "Well, I think the public prefers a good mystery solved, without real victims. This kind of art is sick and unacceptable." She looked at Fred, who was already calling the police on the Mystery Machine's radio, which, miraculously, had started working again with a slight adjustment. Scooby and Shaggy, meanwhile, were sharing the last packet of Scooby snacks they found in Fred's pocket. "Man, I never thought we'd become real horror movie stars," Shaggy said, mouth full. "Right, yeah. Good thing we didn't," Scooby replied, licking his chops. Otis Driftwood, Captain Spaulding, with a look of pure frustration, grumbled, "And I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids and that dumb dog." He shook his head. "You ruined everything. I would have dominated the fear entertainment market." Fred, hanging up the radio, smiled at the group. "Looks like the police are on their way. They'll enjoy seeing these works of art and the artist behind them." Velma was already organizing the tapes and evidence. This case was one of the most disturbing we've ever solved, and it proves that not every monster is a disguised ghost. As the police siren began to echo in the distance, Daphne looked at the gloomy house, which now seemed just an abandoned building, without its aura of terror. Well, with this mystery solved, maybe it's time for a good meal and a well-deserved vacation. Who knows, a cruise. No ghosts or murderous families, preferably. Scooby and Shaggy looked at each other, and a glimmer of hope appeared in their eyes. "Cruise? With lots of food?" Shaggy asked. Scooby wagged his tail vigorously. Right here. Fred smiled. "First, we need a good shower. And then, who knows, some sunbathing. But one thing is for sure, Mystery Inc. is always ready for the next enigma. After all, there's always a mystery waiting to be solved, isn't there?" The appearance of the Firefly family members, grotesque and threatening figures, made the kitchen air heavy. Captain Spaulding laughed, a dry, cruel sound. "Looks like dinner is served, my dears. A feast of fresh meat, don't you think? Are you kidnapping us for a movie? Is that it?" She tried to appear more confused than scared, seeking to extract information. The strategy worked a little. "Exactly," exclaimed Captain Spaulding. "Movies. The most realistic you've ever seen. No special effects, no stunt doubles. Just pure, genuine ... emotion." He made an obscene gesture with his hand. On the tablet, the search for missing people showed that many of them were independent artists or aspiring actors. These aren't just movies. They're snuff movies. They're filming real people dying. The revelation shocked everyone, and Captain Spaulding, losing his composure, roared, "Shut up, you meddling brats. You already know too much." And a look of repulsion came over Daphne. The Firefly family, with their insane stares and rustic weapons, advanced on Mystery Inc. Scooby and Shaggy, with a final push, managed to knock down the net and fall onto a pile of pots, creating a deafening noise. Chaos erupted in the kitchen. As the Fireflies tried to contain them, Fred, Daphne, and Velma ran into the main hallway. "We need a trap," Fred yelled, as the chase intensified through the dark corridors of the House of 1,000 Corpses. A trap that exposes them once and for all. Scooby and Shaggy frantically swayed in the net, emitting desperate yelps. "Help! Help, Fred! He's going to turn us into mystery stew." Shaggy whined. Fred, jaw clenched, tried to keep calm. "What do you want from us?" And who are these missing people you're listing? Captain Spaulding shrugged, as one of the Fireflies, a corpulent man with an axe in one hand. Oh, them? Just our favorite actors, for our big production, of course. And you, young people, have the potential to be the biggest stars. Daphne, realizing the seriousness of the situation, took the initiative. Production? What kind of production? Movies. While the Firefly family prepared to lower Scooby and Shaggy, Velma, with her keen mind, noticed a detail. Wait, you're filming. Where are the cameras? Velma, Daphne, we need a plan to get Scooby and Shaggy out of there. They're in real danger. Daphne, with a determined look, observed a pile of boxes in the corner. Fred, if we push those boxes, we can knock down the net and create a distraction. She pointed to a dark corner of the kitchen, where a lens gleamed faintly. And the image quality seems low. For a realistic movie, wouldn't you be using top-notch equipment? Velma's provocation made Captain Spaulding and the Fireflies hesitate for a moment. Fred took advantage of the distraction. Scooby and Shaggy, seeing the opportunity, began to swing the net harder. Quick, guys, before they turn us into monster kibble, Shaggy yelled. The Firefly family, annoyed by the commotion, advanced on them. One of them, a woman with tangled hair and wild eyes, pulled out a knife. It was then that Velma realized something even more sinister. The chase began.